Hi there, it's Tim MacGabhann here, greeting you from Mexico City, where it's a balmy 22 degrees in December, just to make you jealous. And today I'm going to read for you from my second novel, How to Be Nowhere, which came out in July of this year with Weidenfeld and Nicholson. And it's a sequel to my first novel, Call Him Mine, which was out last summer. And it follows the legacy of that novel, the events of that novel, for its narrator, Andrew, who lost his boyfriend at the beginning of Call Him Mine and is still recovering from that. And the novel follows him as a past that he thinks he's done with decides that it hasn't finished with him. So I'll just read to you the first two short chapters as a kind of trailer. On the morning that the phone calls started, I dreamed that Carlos and I were back in Costa Rica, back in that place where nobody had asked us to go, back where nobody had asked us to look. This was where my mind lived at night, in a bar with riveted portholes for windows, a slow ocean of fog breaking against the panes, the river slopping black against the glass, leaving a thick drag of foam. An oil derrick clanked behind the bar, pumping stout into a pyramid of glasses, while the dead kid we'd found, Julian Gallardo, lay on the bar at the center of an altar we had made around him. It's like I told you before. Nobody had asked Carlos and I to look at that body. But we had, and then everything had fallen apart. Julian had been an activist murdered by corrupt local police, and we'd never known him when he'd been alive. Never even met him, but nobody had changed my life more. Carlos and I had found him lying dead and faceless at the bottom of an alley, and only I had lived to tell the tale. There's no need to tell you how big a news story that had been. That story was the reason I'd had to leave Mexico. 2 shots, the forensics technician had told me, outside the apartment where Carlos had died. The first between 3rd and 4th rib on the right side, fatally puncturing a lung. In the dream, Carlos stepped up beside me. Smoke crinkled out of the bullet holes in his chest. Jesus. His fingernail clinked against my glass. Of all the ways to crack, you pick Carlsberg. No mames, vato. 3 years since my last drink or line, 6 months since I'd gone around dosing my grief with swigs of diluted LSD from a dinged metal water flask. And yet here I was, a pint in my hand, saying, "Hey, come on, man, it's a premium lager." "Doesn't taste like it, Bato," said Carlos, and lifted the pint to take a deep gulp. Something hissed wetly inside him as he swallowed. The second shot between 5th and 6th rib on the left side, the forensics technician had told me, destroying the heart completely. Carlos tucked his shirt back in and leaned forward to reach for one of the glasses in the pyramid. A poppy collar of bruises ringed his neck. In the creamy whorls of reds and browns, I saw oil, blood, and smoke. A reverse chokehold fractured the hyoid bone. That's what the forensics technician had told me outside the apartment where Carlos had died. "Try this instead, Bato," Carlos said, and held the glass out to me. His vibe was different from before, standoffish, cold, like those white marble statues of ancient Greece, of Orpheus or Eurydice or someone I don't know. "It'll kill you," he said, "but gently, you know." The fizz spritzed my face like drizzle. "Could be all over if you just let yourself drown, Bato," Carlos said. His voice was gentle. His fingers were broken, and his eyes were pinkish with petechial hemorrhaging. 3 years, 6 months. But now my mouth was dripping with the thirst, and my throat became one long ache. A sob rose and fell in my chest. My hand was lifting the glass all by itself, and then gravel crunched. A siren cut through my skull. Police car lights washed over Carlos and me and Julian Gallardo, red and blue and halogen white, and Carlos's killer, half his head missing, his police uniform stained, stepped out of the light. My eyes opened. Maya's knuckles were wrapping the car window. "You said you'd be at arrivals," she said, and swung open the door. "And where did I park?" I swallowed the cobwebs in my mouth, pointed at the red sign glowing above the airport door. It was a foggy night. There weren't many cars. As in standing at arrivals, she said, and slung her back into the back seat before sitting into the front. Ah, no, that was a bridge too far. I yawned and started the car. Coffee cups and donut boxes rattled at my feet, but as I was about to turn around, I saw a white face standing beside a jeep, a white face wearing wraparound sunglasses and a square beard. You gonna drive or what? Maya said. Huh? I blinked. The face vanished. It could have been anything. Frames from a dream, a flash of bad memory, whatever. I saw stuff that wasn't there all the time these days. Oh, yeah. You spaced out there, Maya said. Occupational hazard. I drove us away from the airport, turned us onto the highway from Montevideo back to Colonia. What occupation, Maya said. You haven't been doing shit since you moved here. I don't know, managing trauma or whatever. And speaking of which, are you ready to talk about it all yet? Not really, no. Maya reached into the back seat, rummaged for a second, and then pulled out a giant orange candle shaped like an elephant. We're good for candles, I said, and then I saw the needle as thick as my finger that was stuck in the elephant's flank, and the note reading, "Get out of here, whore," that the needle was holding in place. All right, I said. This was in my hotel room, Maya said, in Costa Rica. You remember all this. Maya had been due to stay with us while she did the write-up of the investigation into what Carlos and I had uncovered in Veracruz, all about how the state government and oil companies had been using gang members and bad cops as death squads to drive indigenous people off their land, to silence activists, to threaten journalists into silence. The governor and his people used to launder their money by paying companies that didn't exist for public services that wouldn't happen. After all that stuff had come to light, it had seemed a lot safer to dig around, and so that's what Maya had been doing. Well, there's safe, and there's Mexican safe. Meaning Maya's editor had called you and I the night before, saying he'd paid to change her flight and would be sending her down on the first plane that could get her to us. Any idea what this is all about? I said. The road's broken white dividing line flicked towards me through the dark. My heartbeat was starting to quicken. It's those shell companies, Maya said, and eased her seat back with a click. I went to their addresses, you know, all those fake places, the taxi ranks, the old people's homes, the Oxos. The last one I went to was in an open-air car park. A guy sitting there, this old guy, a few curls of hair left, and so I asked him, are you the CEO of this company that has an address here? And I hold up the piece of paper I printed out from the Freedom of Information request, and he spits, and he says, I look like one to you? Which sounds like a fucking yes to me, quite frankly. But whatever. I go back to the hotel, and the manager's at reception, and he waves me over, and he lifts his fucking candle out from behind the desk, and this enormous valet comes up behind me with my bag. Yeah, she did jazz hands at me. And so here I am. I thought you didn't want to talk, I said. Nature finds a way, she said, easing herself back against the seat. That's terrifying, though, I said. Jesus Christ. Occupational hazard, she said. How are you, anyway? You know, happy. Quietly so, but happy. Maya looked at me sidelong. I could never get anything past her. Is that code for bored? She said. No comment. I flipped the indicator. It's just new, you know. I'm still hearing bored, she said. Bored is good, I said. Bored means safe. I wish I was bored, but I'm still too scared. The roadside lamps striped the inside of the car with white light. Yeah, said Maya, staring out at the dark. I hear you. Could do with all that stuff being 10 years ago already, I said, like a dog snapping at my heels. Maya didn't say anything. I pointed at the elephant. The needle was stuck fast in a divot of wax. And they let you fly with that thing? I told them it was an art project, she said. Fair. The night was clear, quiet, no light pollution blotting at the glitter of the stars, no chug and thud of cumbia from the clubs, no kids trying to sell us knock-off Marlboro Red at the lights. It was basically the opposite of Mexico City around here. Sometimes I hated that. You hungry or anything? I said, as we slowed towards the old town. The orb lamps on the main square made me feel like I was back in Mexico City's half-wrecked Centro Histórico backstreets. The nick of wood smoke on the air briefly became the tang of beer suds that just fucked musk and rained on leather of the clubs, became mine and Carlos's sweat-run aftershave, but I shoved the memory away. Not really, no, Maya said. Wouldn't say no to his cheeky cigarette though, yeah? Get thee behind me, Satan, I said. She nodded off not long after that. Shock will do that to you. The sallow bones of a right whale glowed in a display sunk into the wall of the fortress by the coast, and I turned past it and slowed towards home. Maya woke at the snapping bone noise of the break. Wow, she said when she saw the house. Ah, yeah, I said, and got out to carry her bags. Inside, I got her settled in the spare room downstairs. Right, so, I said, and gave her a hug. Sleep well. If I can, she said. I believe in you, I said. You need anything, just scream. Blood curdling or standard? Oh, standard will do. I shut the door and climbed up the stairs.